Hi everyone, this is your host Romina, and you are listening to RM Podcast Florida. Today's speaker is very special. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Davis through human resource seminars that I have attended in these recent years. She always stood up to me as her walk and kind of just talked for her. She has this very confident walk that just demands respect just by her presence. After crossing paths a couple of times, I asked her to be the speaker for the college chapter that I'm a president of, and this was last December, and she very genuinely accepted the invitation. Once again, when I reached out to her for this interview, it was the same thing. Dr. Davis is a business professional with over 15 years experience in all phases of human resource. She has previously worked in the financial, telecommunication, and health and welfare industries. In her previous roles, she consulted with leadership on human resources issues, ranging from labor and employee relations to compensation and benefits. Dr. Davis has held several board positions for the Society of Human Resource Management Jacksonville chapter, including Director of Certification, Director of Members, and Director of Workforce Readiness and Diversity. She currently works as human resource business partner for Ameris Bank. She served as a faculty member with the University of Phoenix for over 20 years, in addition to Florida State College of Jacksonville, where she teaches the Human Resource Management Certification Preparation course. Ms. Gloria received her Bachelor's of Art degree in Business Administration from Loyola University in Baltimore, Maryland, a master's degree in human resource from Webster University, and a doctor's degree in education leadership from the University of North Florida. She also holds the Senior Professional of Human Resources certification and the Senior Certified Professional certification. During this phone interview, I strive to ask questions that all of us can benefit from, such as human resource, employee relations, critical conversation methods, and of course, my favorite question of all the time, her definition of success. So without further ado, let's jump into this conversation. We're just going to kind of dive into the questions. And I remember last September, whenever you spoke to our college event, I noticed that you're really passionate about people and you just get excited when you talk about people. How did you get started into the HR world?
Well, I actually worked in finance for about 10 years when immediately out of college, and I worked in accounts payable. I worked as a purchasing manager, and I worked in payroll. In payroll, it's mostly not a lot of interaction with individuals other than for their pay. But due to that fact, working in payroll, we worked closely with the HR department. So when I did a lot of the reporting for the payroll for HR, and when a position became available in human resources, I applied for that position as a generalist position, and I got that position. So I went from payroll into HR that way by working closely with HR.
Nice. So it's not like your first choice was HR, just kind of your career took you that path.
Yes. My first introduction into business was finance, and I did that, like I said, for about 10 years in different roles.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And I know personally, most of us are employed somewhere, but when we think of HR, for some reason, our mind just goes to the negative direction. We think of we might be in trouble. That's why we're at the HR. What would you say to those people? Like, how can employees see HR as their partner and not as their challenging moment when they start getting nervous of why am I in this office? How can we change the mentality?
Well, I think if we look at HR as a partner, which is really a partner to the organization and a partner to the employees versus a disciplinary organization, I think that may be, like you alluded to, people think of it negatively. But, HR obviously works in a lot of areas with the benefits portion, with planning employee events, hopefully creating a positive culture in the workplace. So I think if we just make sure we let individuals understand we have a partnership, because your first introduction is usually the recruiting process when you're introduced to the organization, and that's an enjoyable time. So at that time, when the individual comes into the organization, just letting them know you're there to help them through different situations and that you're a partner, and that kind of maybe help alleviate some of that negative thought process when they think of HR.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so true because I was one of the people that had that mentality too before. But once we start going to the seminars with Society Human Resource Management and I just kind of got more introduced to the human resource world, I changed my mentality there too. But I see a lot of my coworkers still have that negative mentality, which I'm trying to help to say it's not, a challenging moment. Like they are there for you to help you out because they work with you.
And
they have your back.
Their only experience has been negative. So hopefully if they get some positive experiences, throughout the course of their employment in whatever organization they work in, they'll see it's more to one side of HR than just disciplinary.
So would you recommend, let's say, somebody that has their manager, know who's the manager and the manager's manager, would you absolutely recommend somebody to get familiar with the HR office and who works at the HR to kind of create their relationship, just kind of introduce themselves?
Yeah, I think it's more of HR's responsibility to do that, to get out into the workplace, maybe visit some team meetings and whenever there's something positive going on, celebrating an employee's anniversary or maybe celebrating an accomplishment, that type of thing. And when they see us in positive situations, they'll see us differently versus just, when there's something negative or something to be addressed. So I think it is more of an HR responsibility to start the process and then hopefully the managers will, really accept it in a positive way.
Perfect. Thank you. That was one point that I wanted to make sure I hit because I'm sure a lot of our listeners they have ran across through that before or they might be coming across to that now. So whatever we can do to definitely help out.
Mm-hmm.
Another question that I'm sure you have passed through this a couple of times is whenever you go back to the HR, having that critical conversation. Not necessarily being in trouble, but, if you need to improve your performance or if you didn't obey the policy, whenever you do have to have that critical conversation, what are some tips and tricks that you can give us? Because I'm sure we can benefit not even for our professional life, but even for our personal life too. Like, what are some advices you can give us?
Well, I think for me, and I'm going to be honest with you, if I'm going to have a very difficult conversation with an employee, I actually pray about it before I have the conversation. Just that I, use the right language, that I use the right words, and that I'm not intimidating to the person. I actually do that. But I think being honest is the key, in my opinion, to having those conversations. So, letting the individual know, like you mentioned, when they come into your office on HR, if they think it's a disciplinary situation, they're already on guard and they may be nervous. And what I do typically is let them know, this is really not the most enjoyable part of my position. I really don't like having these conversations. To let them know I'm getting no joy from having to, discipline you. So I think that helps break down barriers when individuals know this is difficult for me, but it's part of my job, and this is what we have to do and work through it. And I tend to use, it sounds probably cliche, but I tend to use the sandwich approach when I'm working in a disciplinary situation where I talk about what that employee has done well, what behavior they need to discontinue or whatever that issue is we're talking about, how that needs to stop, and then that we feel they can move forward and have a great career so that we end it on a positive note. So typically that's what I do. I just try to be very honest, very straightforward, but to let them know this is not to, always leave a person with their dignity. You don't want to talk in a way that makes them feel put down or, when they leave your office, they just feel horrible. The incident itself is bad enough than for them to feel, talked down to. So it's my goal to always let them leave away in some way a positive note, even if it was a difficult conversation.
That's thank you for sharing that. So always leave on a positive note. That's kind of very important because you definitely want to make sure that whatever was discussed for that 5 minutes or an hour, it was unproductive and there's no necessarily harm feelings, but it always
Right.
striving towards the better. Thank you.
Right.
That's a very good
Mhm.
message. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
As we know, the graduation season was just around the corner, and I've encountered this with a couple of my coworkers and my friends that whenever they start applying for high-end jobs or maybe applying for their dream job that they worked so hard on, they would close social media, that would close whatever, like their names out there, they would Google themselves and make sure nothing negative or nothing suspicious is showing out. Is it true that recruiters actually look at your social media and do they like create opinions on that?
Well, I would say some recruiters may use social media at times, especially LinkedIn, because that's a professional website. And I've had people many times who are going to interview with me. They'll come in and say, I looked you up on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So, the applicants do the same thing. They look to see, I guess, the person who they're going to be interviewing with and get some information. So I think some recruiters do that. Whether they form an opinion, I couldn't say. But I think the key is I always advise individuals when you're out actually looking for a position, and really should do it all the time, to Google yourself and see what's out there. If you have, whatever social media, scan your social media, and you just want to make sure that there's nothing out there defamatory or unflattering that you're not proud of. I would just say as a rule, ongoing is to not have anything in your social media that you are not proud of or that's unflattering to you, and you really don't have to worry about taking anything down when someone, looks you up. So I say keep it current, and then, just make sure everything's accurate and it shows in a positive light.
So
because
always
it can help you if they see that you're active on LinkedIn. They may see that you volunteered at an event and you have a picture out there. Those types of things. I think it can be helpful, but it's up to the individual to make sure your information is positive. So you don't have to worry about if somebody looks it up. They're not going to see anything that you're not proud of.
So if you always keep it professional, you not necessarily have to take down social media, but just try to be as professional as you can.
Yes.
I remember I was having a conversation with one of my professors one time about social media, and I remember he stated, he's like, if you put it on social media, it's stamped. It's always there. Even if you delete it, somebody can take a screenshot of it or save it.
Right.
So just double think it before you post it.
Exactly. And, one of the old schools of thought we used to say is don't post anything you wouldn't want your mother to see. Because that's, your mother is the one, or your mother or father or whoever you consider your role model, someone you look up to. If you wouldn't want them to see it, then you probably don't want to put it out there.
That's true. That's another way to think of it.
Exactly.
I've thought of it before as if I wanted to give up on something or if I was doing something, I would think of as my mom or my dad being behind me and thinking, would they be proud if they see me doing
right.
that?
That'll make you think twice.
Yeah.
Right, that'll make you think twice. And even if you have children, when you're at the point in life where you have children, would you want them, would you want them to see it? So that is
so true. So you have to think about the future of your own family. That is a very good point you brought out. That is so true. My other question, I wanted to kind of focus, I'm sure you've encountered with thousands of employees and been in the HR world for years now. Has there been a specific situation where you had to have like that critical conversation with an employee and you just see them completely turn and just become so much more productive, just strive for their goals and just be like a great conversation and felt proud that you had that conversation with the person? Is there any employee or any specific person that stands up in mind that you just feel like a little proud of yourself as mentor that you might have been for them at one point?
Yeah, I'm trying to think in general if there's one person that stands out. There's one employee that stands out somewhat. When I worked for Citigroup, an employee who was she was in one of our analyst roles, or she was in a role that she was good at, but it wasn't a non-exempt position, so she was paid hourly, and
Mhm.
she was a single mother, and she wanted to move up in the organization, and so she had a difficult time making the move because she felt because she was paid hourly, she was losing overtime, and
Mhm.
she had to, she would, because, and I explained to her, I said, well, that's a move most of us have had to make when you move from being non-exempt to exempt. You may see yourself in actuality, you lose some dollars because you don't get overtime anymore, but you have to think of whether you want a job or a career. And so I said, if you want to move into a career, you're going to have to take this step. And, I talked to her about taking some classes because she wanted to move more into the IT field. I said, why don't you take some classes, and the company, would support it, pay
Mhm.
for it, take some classes, and you're going to see yourself move up into a higher level. And that happened for her. She started to move up. She was happier in the position. And she was well liked in the organization, and she did a good job, but I feel it was a success, not so much for me, but just to give her some coaching
Mhm.
as to you have to make that step, because some people stay back in a lower level role for 20 years because they just don't want to take the step to be, quote, exempt and not get overtime. But it's, again, my point to her was, you can have a job the rest of your life, or you can have a career, and which one do you want? So to have a career, you have to take a risk and you have to make that leap. So she did that, and it was successful for her.
So you brought up another very good point towards whenever you make a decision to look at the long-term benefit compared to just the short term. Because
Right.
long term you might have a career, towards short term you might be losing those benefits, but over time, but long
Mhm.
term you have a job guaranteed, you have much more stable income, and you know for a fact that you can always escalate higher and higher.
Right, and I'll take one of your points. I would say this, the advice I give to everybody: there's never a guarantee of employment, And I think most people, especially in your generation, probably realize that the only job security is how marketable you are. So if you stay current in whatever field you're in and constantly learn, take advantage of any type of training your employer offers, those are the things that keep you marketable and keep you employed. And sometimes we get comfortable in a position and we just relax, but
Mhm.
that day may come when the company says, oh, we're going to make a change, we're merging, we're downsizing, and unfortunately your position is no longer needed. And so if you haven't been consistently improving yourself, you may find yourself in a situation where you feel like you're starting from scratch.
So you should
So,
always have the student mentality and try to learn more, even
yeah,
because
have
you're
that
really.
right. Not a mentality of fear, but just of being better and doing, whatever you're doing, and always being better at it and learning as much as you can, becoming an expert in your field, whatever you choose to do.
Perfect. That's a lot of great feedback, and not even me. I feel like I've learned a lot more. But I
Mhm.
hope all the listeners to at least, my goal is for everybody just to learn at least one new thing from every podcast. So,
Okay.
my very last question here, and I'm always intrigued about everybody's answer because everybody's definition is different. What is your definition of success?
To me, success is being your best self. Because, if you think of some individuals, we look at it, people from outside and say, oh, that person is successful, but we don't know inside how they feel. Outside they could look successful, but they may not be happy. So I would say being your best self. You could be volunteering at a nonprofit and making $12 an hour. And someone would say, oh my God, that's not successful. But if you're happy doing that, you love it, you love helping people, that's success. So I say being your best self, doing what you love to do and feeling valued when you do it. That's success to me. And that could be whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether, whatever because your life changes as you move along in life. So you could maybe not even be in the work world, but you may be volunteering. You could be a stay-at-home mom. Whatever you're doing, just enjoy it and you feel good that you're doing it. And if you feel valued when you're doing it, I think that's success.
That's a very interesting answer because you hit the point of being happy with your inner self, which
Right.
Unfortunately we live in a social media where a lot of people have this
fake facade of just, I have this happy life when inside I can be miserable, unfortunately. But you hit at the point where I feel like eventually, because of social media, this is going to be one of the side effects, that people are just not happy, like they don't have that inner peace. And it is, I did run through that actually before, but now I feel a lot better, and once you feel so much happier with yourself, and once you just feel satisfied, and you don't need to satisfy mom or dad or your friends, you just feel like you're at peace and nothing is impossible. That is so true.
Right. And I think you make a very good point about the social media. Think about it, and it's not that we want to see negative things, but who posts negative things on social media? You're only going to post the positive, which is great. We want to see positive, but nobody's life is happy all the time. So
true.
It's unrealistic, and some people get caught up in comparing themselves to other people. How many vacations they took, and they bought a new car, or their relationship with their partner is so great. Why can't I have that? Well, I think we spend too much time comparing ourselves with other people. Focus on doing whatever makes you feel good and what you're happy with, and then you won't be so hung up in that.
That is so true. I recently have closed my Facebook for about 4 months now because I just felt overwhelmed from like people posting so much, and I feel like for a while it was a waste of time. So instead I started reading, and I just feel like I'm learning more, and I have that inner peace that I was talking about earlier. So that is so true. Like, you see somebody posting a brand new car or their relationship, and you just get in your own head for a moment. And unfortunately, sometimes you let that go further than you should. And especially teenagers. I mean, we're growing in an age with digital age. Social media is influencing so much that I wish there was more awareness towards social media side effects, and maybe even have it like you can use it only 1 or 2 hours a day. Like, I don't want to be like strict and, have like regulations, because it's your life, your choices. But I just feel like it would help more everybody long term for their own personal life and for their own career.
Right, how much they connect, and and for your own self, like you mentioned, everyone has they know what they do personally. They say, I'm going to give myself a holiday from social media, or it may just be certain days of the week you don't look at it. But I'll share this with you, and whoever listens will hear it now. Most people, I've never been on Facebook, and I don't have a Facebook account. And my friends, because I'm never, and I have friends in other states because I'm not from Florida originally, and they always say, why don't you get on Facebook? And I just don't have the need. We talk, we text each other, they send me pictures. My daughter is on it, so she sends me things, but, I just don't want to. I've never really wanted to be on it. But I think it's a great platform, especially when you're from out of town. You want to keep in touch with your family and friends and what's going on, but I just do it in other ways. I'd rather just call them on the phone and talk with them. So, whatever works, but I think for success, the key, and it sounds so cliche, but you have to be happy. So what you're doing, if it makes you feel good, someone else may not think it's successful, but it's not about what they think, it's about what you think. And when you're successful, when you're happy about what you do, everybody can see it, because you smile most of the time. You just carry yourself in a different way, and people will look at you and they'll see the success because you're happy with what you're doing.
You have so much more positive energy in you.
Yes.
Energy is infectious.
Yes, it is. It definitely is.
Awesome. Well, I feel like we've touched a lot of great points. Is there any last moment that you'd like to add?
No, I think, you actually asked me some great questions that hopefully, I hope my answers have benefit some of your listeners, but, the key is staying focused. And I would say the last thing is, whenever they feel whatever they're into, whether it's getting a degree or they're having a hard time at their employer, just to not give up and stay strong, keep the faith, and just get coaching from friends or family, or find someone you trust to talk to about the situation, because it usually will get better. So to whenever they feel down, to use those resources. Keep some people in your life that you trust and you can talk with, because that can really help you in those situations.
That is so true. And keep your close circle. Always keep positive people around you also.
Exactly, right, because some people can drain you.
Yes, that's not good.
Right, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I absolutely want to thank you so much, Dr. Davis, for being a part of this podcast. This is the very first episode of the podcast, so I hope everybody enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it having another conversation with you. Like I said, since the September event, you're just so passionate that I loved it. And I remember I asked you a lot of questions at event too, because I was like, you're just so positive towards people and you love people. So
Yes, I love what I do. I really do. So, but I appreciate you asking me. I feel honored that you asked me to do it. So, I'm glad to help you. I'm glad to participate. Let me know if I can ever be of help to you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for accepting for the interview.
You're welcome. You have a great day.
You too, hon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, I have to say this interview was very educational for me, and I hope it was the same for our listeners as well. My goal is for everyone to learn at least one new thing per episode. If you would like to know more information about Dr. Davis, you can find her on LinkedIn with the full name of Gloria Davis. As always, you guys can go to our website, rmpodcastfl.com, for all of our episodes and more information. Also, you can find us on YouTube, on Instagram, again under RM Podcast FL. Thank you again for your time and for listening to today's podcast. We will be back with another awesome and educational interview soon, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Bye now. Hi, everyone.